What's up, everyone? Welcome to the March 18th edition of FanDuel Tournament Plays presented by PrizePicks. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. And as a reminder, you get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you sign up and make a deposit at PrizePicks. Be sure to use the code Awesemo to receive a 100% first deposit bonus up to $100. We have a massive 12-game slate on tap tonight in the NBA. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of injury news that we're waiting on. So, as usual, some of the things I'm going to talk about are going to change between now and lock. Be sure to tune in to the deeper dive and live before lock on the Awesemo YouTube channel in the 2 hours leading up until tip for more up-to-date player projections, ownership projections, and injury news. But for now, taking a look at 5 of the top tournament options on FanDuel using the boom bust tool on the Awesemo.com website. Starting at number 5, Cameron Payne is projected for about 5% ownership. He has an 8% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Payne has point guard and shooting guard eligibility. He's only $7,000. Now, Payne was a very, very strong fantasy producer in a couple of games where Devin Booker and Chris Paul were both out. Now you do have Devin Booker back, but in the 5 games that Payne has played with Booker active and without Paul this season, he's still averaged 30.3 minutes per game, and he's also averaged 1.14 FanDuel points per minute. So at a $7,000 price tag in what is likely to be a high-scoring game against the Chicago Bulls, Payne still looks like a high upside option who's going a little bit under-owned. Number 4, Kristaps Porzingis is projected for 4% ownership with a 10% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Porzingis is on a minutes restriction with Washington, but his salary is cheap enough where there is still some upside given all of the opportunities that he gets within Washington's offense. In the 5 games he's played with the Wizards, Porzingis has averaged 1.4 FanDuel points per minute. He offers some block upside as well, which we know is extremely important on FanDuel. And if this game's competitive, he's likely to give you 27 or 28 minutes against his former team. Currently projected to be just a little bit under-owned, even factoring in the playing time restriction. Number 3, Jayshawn Tate, projected for 9% ownership with about an 11% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Tate is in a very favorable game against the Indiana Pacers, 2 absolutely horrible NBA teams, but 2 teams that play fast and don't really play much defense. So it sets up as a very appealing game from a fantasy standpoint. Tate has power forward and small forward eligibility. He's $4,700. In the games he's played with both Kevin Porter and Christian Wood active this season, Tate has still averaged 0.96 FanDuel points per minute, and he's averaged 26.8 minutes per game. Assuming he gives you 26 or 27 minutes here, he looks like a good value option that's going a little bit under-owned at $4,700. Number 2, Chris Dunn, projected for 8% ownership with an 11% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Dunn joined Portland a couple of games ago, and in the 2 games since he's been there, he's played 20 minutes and 28 minutes. I don't think that you can just pencil him in for another 28 minutes on average going forward. But even if he plays in the 20 to 24 minute range, Dunn is someone that over the last few seasons has averaged 0.89 FanDuel points per minute. In the 2 games he's played with Portland this year, he's at 0.87 FanDuel points per minute, and he's minimum priced at $3,500. He does only have point guard eligibility, which makes it a little bit more difficult to get him into lineups, but there's plenty of guys to pay up for on this slate, and using Dunn's cheap price tag is one way that you can do so. And number 1, Dejante Murray, speaking of guys to pay up for, he's projected for 8% ownership with a 14% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Murray is $10,800, and he has point guard and shooting guard eligibility. He has a favorable matchup against the New Orleans Pelicans. This game has a 3-point spread. It has a 237 total. And in the games that Murray has played without Derek White this year, he's averaged 1.57 FanDuel points per minute, and he's also averaged 35.8 minutes per game. He's a very, very high upside option. And while his salary has increased pretty drastically on FanDuel recently, it's worth noting that he was wildly underpriced when he was sitting in the $9,500 or $9,600 range. So seeing someone like that go up in salary isn't a red flag. It's not that it's not, that you're paying for recent performances and, chasing points or whatever you want to call it. It's that he was just completely mispriced and now he's less mispriced, but still looks like a very high upside tournament option at low ownership. So to recap, the top 5 tournament options on FanDuel: number 5, Cameron Payne; number 4, Kristaps Porzingis; number 3, Jayshawn Tate; number 2, Chris Dunn; and number 1, Dejante Murray.